Hello and welcome to today's sketchbook session. In this video, I'm going to touch on the importance of pencil sketches, drawing with graphite, how it's helped improve my skills over time. Here are some of the supplies I'll be using today, just a variety of pencils and anything graphite is all about today. I'll share some tips as we fill a sketchbook page, so feel free to grab yours and draw along. Our supplies are our tools, our helpers, and an extension of us. So it's really nice and important to take some time to get to know them. I call this prep and play, but essentially the most important part is just using something that you love to use. Then just welcome in play. When it comes to this, there's no right or wrong. This is just your time to explore. I like to do different shapes, different marks, different patterns, and whatever feels like fun and playful energy to me. Switch it up, take different pencils, see how the harder, more softer pencils perform. And the goal here is to just welcome in as much variety and think of it as going on a walk with a friend that you're meeting for the very first time, or maybe just revisiting and just finding ways to get to know them. Your pencil is your friend. When it comes to prep and play, I love to do this with all sorts of different supplies where I start to do little figure drawings or maybe even just practice some cross-hatching. This is like you stretching your muscles before starting a dance class. Another great exercise is to practice some ellipses and seeing how the object turns in 3D. And my ultimate favorite exercise is to practice light to dark shading scales. Super simple to prep. All you do is take a rectangle and divide it into 8 to 9 parts, and you're basically going to be shading from very light to very dark, focusing on shading the whole rectangle. And then I like to practice this with colored pencils as well to get a feel for a different supply, but still a pencil. After a few minutes of prep and play, I grab my sketchbook and begin the drawings of the day. When beginning to break into a blank page, it's always like a slow dance, a slow start to build up the values, get to know the subject, and just ease into the practice. Remember that there is no rush, and especially with the first pencil drawing, you want to just take your time because you're still actually warming up, and I usually tend to feel this way, at least when I begin the sketchbook pages. When it comes to building up the values, I like to start with a very light mark with more geometric shapes to slowly get the drawing in. I'm having a conversation with the subject and I'm thinking, okay, which angles do I see in relationship to the other shapes that I already initially put in? What helps with building up values is really focusing on how you position the pencil itself and how it's gliding on the paper. Thinking of when you build something in general, you start off with a foundation and you build and grow whatever it is that you're building. So first I'm starting off with a very light pencil drawing, and then I like to build up my values by adding more cross-hatching, and I will increase the pressure that I put on the pencil itself as the sketch progresses. If in some cases I built up the values a bit too much and I want to soften something, I use a blending stump, and then I rework the area back in with some more graphite. I chose this reference because I want to speak a little bit about facial hair or hair in general. When you notice any hair shape, think about the direction that it's growing, and that will really help you create the marks. And to further develop the values, I like to take a thicker graphite pencil and add in some more even bolder marks at the end. And speaking of marks, that brings me to tip number 2. When referring to mark making, this is your way of laying down your pencil on the paper, how your hand dances on the surface, and how you translate your personality into the mark that you make. When you're drawing, don't be afraid to look at the hair, and if there's a bit more flow or energy, increase the energy in your mark making. Now, if there's a more delicate area that you need to slow down and focus on more, slow down the mark and get a little bit more delicate with your pencil. This perhaps is a personal preference, but I really like to see the mark that a pencil makes, and I really enjoy seeing the crosshatches or a little bit of texture mixed into the drawing itself. So find that delicate balance and think about what kind of mark you want to make and how you see it fit for the reference. And if you ever do a little bit too much, you can always grab a kneaded eraser. It doesn't have any eraser shavings or any residue, so you can just gently tap on the paper and the values are gently lifted. Here, notice how I shaded in the whole neck and the whole area, just shading upwards. And then I also selectively focused on the shadow shapes and added some more flow into the hair with a larger graphite and some more little whimsy marks. Now, don't worry if you haven't figured out your mark, because this takes time to develop, and frankly, every day we're learning as it's part of the art journey. When it comes to your tools, whether you're using a pencil, an eraser, a blending stump, a sharpener, think of them to your advantage. Think of your eraser as a pencil. Think about the mark that your mechanical pencil makes. Perhaps it's a little bit thinner, more precise. And think about the softness or more textured look that your larger graphite pencils make. Just something to think about while you're drawing. It's just about changing the perspective a bit. As I continue to develop this drawing, I want to let you know this video is kindly sponsored by Squarespace. Notice how the marks that I'm making, I'm really just building up in certain angles and keeping the same angle throughout the whole shaded area. If you're not familiar, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for you to build your website. If you're wondering on the supplies that I'm using, I have them all linked in a special little area on my site, which thanks to them, you can create these little hidden links that will lead you and help you find the supplies that I use and just more about me. This all-in-one platform has award-winning templates to help build out your shop or your portfolio, or even lead people to more tutorials or new little books that you made. Another tip when it comes to working out with the supplies, I really like to take the blending stump once again and connect the two sketches together to really have them flow with one another and tie in the whole spread. So if you're ready to give Squarespace a try, go to squarespace.com for your free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/JessCarp for your 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Soft versus textured. The yin and the yang. Tip number 4 is all about finding out that balance of the texture versus the softness in your pencil sketches. Certain parts of the sketch want to be softened and certain ones want to have a little bit more texture. This can be part of the facial structure, whether you're doing fur, maybe for an animal, or hair, or certain parts of the skin, depending on the age of the person. This can also come down to just a simple choice that you want to make as an artist, because remember, you have the freedom of choice to do whatever you want with your sketches. Keeping the practice, showing up to the page, and staying creative is one way that will help you find that. There are no shortcuts, guys. It's all a lifelong journey. So with this reference, he had a beautiful mustache, and it's just a great reference to find smiles in. And also, what will help you really get excited about drawing is just picking things that you enjoy to draw. Explore that within yourself, and you'll be one step closer to simply enjoying the process, because you want to be having fun, right? Last but not least, let's talk about finding the shapes in your sketches. Notice in certain areas, I'll find and define the shape a little bit, and then I will use a angled mark to fill in that shadow. In this moment, I trust what I see in the reference, and I lay down the mark with confidence, and then I don't go back or overwork the area. Something I've been continuing to practice is the concept of less is more. Here is a great example of finding out the mass and the shape in a subject and then shading it in one area to define that shadow after you found that shape. This is an awesome book, in case you're wondering. It's called The Bridgman's Complete Guide to Drawing from Life. Highly recommend. And this is a great example for just finding out the shape and then shading in one area. Even here in this hand drawing, you can see there's a definition in the shadow shape and then a whole angled mark to shape that area in to just define that shape and keep it in one section and in unison. And there's also a lot of beautiful marks to keep that gesture alive and keep that hand looking super, super lively. Even in these little studies here of some anatomy, you can see the definition of the shadow shape right there, and then again, an angled mark to fill in that shadow. So this is a great technique to use in your sketches, and it's a great way to just have your eyes see the shape and then shade it in as one. So as I find the shape and make my way over, then I use one angled mark to fill that shape in, and I leave a nice little area for the highlight. Sometimes the angled shading can change throughout the sketch itself, but once I find the shape, it usually stays with the same shading with that first round of shading. And wherever I want to put a little bit more emphasis on, I again add a bit more pressure to the pencil. This goes full circle back to the prep and play step where you can sit and just practice your mark making. Think about the shapes that you find when you do start playing with your pencils and graphite, and then you can apply that to your drawings and see that in live action. In areas where I need a bit more sharpness, sometimes I go back in with the eraser to carve those shapes out. And after a fun graphite session, we've got a finished spread. Here's the finished spread. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what your favorite tip was in the comments below, and if you have any, feel free to drop them there as well. As per usual, everything is linked in the description below. This was a super fun one as I'm taking on a graphite art challenge. You can check that out over on my Instagram as well. And if you want to keep on watching, I have some sketchbook tours up on the screen in case you want to keep going and keep getting creative together. I also have a tips playlist on the screen in case you want some more tips, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Ciao!